Shazam is the 7th movie in the DCEU, directed by David F. Sandberg, written by Henry Gayden and Darren Lemke, and tells the story of Billy Batson, a teenage boy who goes into a brand new foster family who one day is granted the power of turning into an adult superhero by shouting out the titular phrase, Shazam. Now, I do want to quickly, first of all, apologise for this review being slightly later than most other reviews. As you'll all know, I've been away for the past 2 weeks. I literally saw the film yesterday, the day after I came back from my 2-week break, and I was so impressed with this movie. I was anticipating it beforehand. I was really convinced by the trailers and the images that had been released online for it, and I was really excited for the film. But my God, this movie was such a humongous breath of fresh air, of fun and joy. It is a brilliant superhero film, easily the best film in the DCEU, and probably one of the best superhero movies I have seen in recent memory. First off, I have to say Zachary Levi kills it as Shazam. He is fantastic in this film. I know there were some people out there who were a bit unsure about him casting-wise. I was always very much for Zachary Levi. I thought he fit the role of Shazam perfectly, and he's brilliant in this. You genuinely believe that this is a teenage boy in the body of an adult. Everything that he does, the way he reacts to it, it's so brilliant, and Zachary Levi just nails the role. I always thought he would do, like I said, based on the trailers, and just in interviews, he just seems like a big kid, and that's what he plays it as here, and he's fantastic in this film. Also, Asher Angel as the younger teenage Billy Batson, I also thought was very good in this film as well, especially during some of the more emotional sequences in the final act. I thought he was very good, but for me, the standout of the film was Jack Dylan Grazer as Freddy. He was fantastic. I mean, he was one of the best parts about the It remake from 2017. And in here, he is just fantastic. His chemistry with Zachary Levi and Asher Angel, for a fact, was brilliant. The back and forth off of one another, I was in stitches throughout most of the scenes with them together. They just have such good comedic timing. The directing in here as well by Sandberg is fantastic. I've loved all of his films beforehand. Lights Out was one of the best horror films of 2016, and I'd say from a tone standpoint, this film very much reminded me a lot of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. It is very fun and light-hearted and a little bit campy in places, but it knows when to be serious. It builds a great emotional core with the characters, and it's so brilliantly well done. The film knows when to take itself out of the fun tone and make itself a little bit more serious. I wouldn't say dark exactly, but definitely bring it down to a more serious and human tone, which I thought was brilliant. It didn't feel like it was one tone in 1 minute, then one tone the other. It was two tones throughout, and the way that they interweave within one another, I thought was brilliantly well done. There's also a lot of sequences in here that kind of harken back to Sandberg's origins in film. Of course, he previously directed horror movies. There are a few sequences in here that definitely reminded me a little bit of the horror genre, kind of similar to the scene in Spider-Man 2, where Doc Octopus wakes up on the operating table and he kills all of those surgeons. There's very much a scene like that in this film. I won't spoil it for those, but it definitely is a scene that kind of lets Sandberg play into his horror roots, and I really enjoyed that about the film. I just like the fact that clearly he was given such freedom as to what he wanted to do, and the tone and the direction in general was brilliant. The action in the movie as well was something that really surprised me, because I didn't know how Sandberg was going to, approach the action in the film, because he's never really done anything like this in any of his big feature films, but here I thought it was very, very good. A lot of them have got very much a jokey vibe to them, but it works so well with one another, and I found myself very entertained with the fight sequences, because it's not all about the choreography or anything like that. It's just about keeping the audience entertained and happy and smiling, and I was doing so throughout the entirety of the action in the film. And what I liked the most was the way that Sandberg filmed it. A lot of the action very much has this kind of handheld feel to it, almost as if from a found footage film, because there's quite a few of them where it's like the camera zooming in and out of the frame. It's very different, and I really did appreciate it, and I certainly was not bored with the action, because I found it very, very exciting and very, very funny to watch for a lot of the time. And then, of course, we have the main villain of Dr. Savannah, played by Mark Strong. He was probably one of the things that I wasn't too sure about going into this film, because we really didn't see a lot of him in the pre-release material. But in here, I actually really did like Savannah. Now, granted, he's not a great villain. I do wish that we had had a little bit more of him in the film. But what I will say is that I really do like his reasoning and his motives for being a villain. The fact that he's basically like a darker representation of Billy Batson. And so I really like that about him. I liked his motivation for him wanting, you know, to do what he ultimately goes through with in the film. It was very clear, and I thought Mark Strong's performance was very, very good. I mean, I love Mark Strong. I love him as an actor. I love him in almost everything he's in. And here I just thought he was fantastic as well. You can tell he's chewing every bit of scenery, and he's really good in the film. I'd probably go as far as to say he's one of the better villains in the DCEU. I'd probably put him up there with Orm and Zod for me personally as like the 3 best villains in the DCEU. But I really did like Sivana in the film, and I very much found him a very palatable threat, and I really liked what he brought to the film as a villain. And last but not least, the third act of this film. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I mentioning the third act as a positive? Well, the reason for this is because a lot of the films in the DCEU have really terrible final acts. Apart from Aquaman, it's the only one that I don't think has a poor final act. The final act of Shazam is fantastic, because what it does is it basically doesn't betray what the first 2 acts did. It brings all of the storylines that it's set up in those first 2 acts of the film and brings them all to a close in such a great, satisfying way. Again, I won't spoil what happens in the final act, but I was honestly smiling so much from how well the film wrapped up its themes and its motives. It was in just such a brilliant, fantastic way. And the action in the third act as well was really good as well. It didn't drag for me. I didn't find myself getting disinterested because it was just all CGI. I mean, there's a lot of CGI in the final act, but I was never bored. I was never taken out of the experience. And for me, it's the best final act of any of the films in the DCEU. It's so brilliantly well done. And I feel like I have to mention it because, like I say, the other films have such poor final acts. But here, the final act was just perfect. And surprisingly enough, I really don't have any major criticisms for Shazam, which is kind of strange because I remember watching my screening of the film and I'm like, I can't think of anything I don't like. And then by the time I got out of the film, there really wasn't anything that I didn't like about the movie. I'd say the only thing that I wished was maybe a little bit better was, like I say, I wish that Sivana had maybe had a little bit more development, you know, to upgrade him from that, you know, being a good villain to a great villain. And I would also say as well that I do think there maybe could have been a few more action sequences in the film, but then again, the film isn't really about action, it's about the story and the characters, which is something I commend. I really respect DC for going down that path. I mean, I guess I can maybe say as well that the score, I wish it had maybe had a bit more of an oomph to it. It felt a little bit generic in places. I did like Shazam's main theme, but when you consider that the score was done by Benjamin Wallfish, who's one of the best upcoming composers out there, I think I did expect a little bit more from the score, but it wasn't terrible. I still enjoyed it. It's just I don't think it's something like Aquaman or Wonder Woman, where it's a score that I will listen to on repeat for ages. So with all that being said, let's get into the final verdict for Shazam. Like I said earlier, this is easily the best film in the DCEU, hands down. I think it's better than Wonder Woman because I think it has a stronger villain and it also has a far better final act. The entire cast is amazing. The entire Foster family is fucking amazing. The direction and tone is outstanding. The action was fun and vibrant. Sivana was not a terrible villain like I thought going into the film, and the third act paid everything off in such a fantastic manner. So for that being said, I'm going to give Shazam the rating of a 9 out of 10. I think it deserves it for me personally. I will be watching this film again this week because it deserves my support. If you have not seen this movie, please go and watch it now. It is awesome. You will love it as much as I did. So thank you all very much for watching my review on Shazam. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have seen Shazam, and if you have, let me know what you thought about it. Thank you all very much for watching the video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you all again next time for the next video. Goodbye.